Good morning. Okay, so new week, new assignment things, new place. I'm actually doing like real distance teaching now. I'm in Dallas. So it's a whole new thing. That being said, you have the imperialism vocab, okay, that is like an activity for you to do. Hold on. No, they're fine. Okay. Um, Anyway, you have the imperialism vocab that is an activity for you to do. And just like the way that we've done it in the past, I am your glossary because you don't have one. I mean, I guess you could, look them all up in the dictionary or whatever, Google it if you have whatever. But why? Just let me be your glossary. Yeah. If you need to pause this video so that you can actually look for all these things, do that. Okay. And yeah. Are you ready? Okay, so we are starting with imperialism this week, which is all about empire building. Okay, that's what the word imperialism means. So we have a bunch of empires, we have a bunch of wars, all kinds of good stuff. That being said, the very first word that you have up there is Indochina. Indochina is this section south of China that is like Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, stuff like that. Indochina, an area I just saw it. I just looked at the screen and I just looked down and there it is. Find it? Okay, the next word, imperialism. I'm putting my rings on. Imperialism is empire building. It's empire building all over again, really truly. You are trying to take over another place. We've talked about empire building all year long. So this is nothing new. Empire building. Okay, the word penal colony. Ha ha ha. Okay, penal, get over it. Penal colony. Penal means law. So a penal colony is a place where they take criminals. Specifically, we're going to refer to England, but it's a colony where criminals are taken. It'll be what Australia will become for a little while. It'll be Georgia was a penal colony in the American colonies. Penal colony. It's where convicts are taken, like a prison colony. Typically, they farm. But you can do any work on a penal colony, but typically they farm. The next word, the Monroe Doctrine. You should have talked about this in the 8th grade. The Monroe Doctrine is this document that was given to like the rest of the world from President Monroe in the 1800s that basically says nobody can come in and take over these brand new independent Latin American countries. Baby countries, I've told you often all year, are very easy to take over, and especially England wanted to come in and swoop in and take over some of the Latin American countries once like Bolivar and Jose de San Martin got independence from Spain. So the Monroe Doctrine says, no countries can come in and take these places over. And if you do, you're going to be dealing with America. The next one, second column, the Opium War. There actually should probably be an S on that. There's actually multiple Opium Wars, but this is a series of wars between England and China, where basically England was selling opium big time. Opium's a drug, and China says, "Hey, can you quit?" And England's like, "No, we're making too much money." So they fight these series of wars, and obviously England wins. That shouldn't be a surprise. So that's the Opium Wars. Okay, the next guy, or the next word right here. Look at this guy's name right here. Rudyard. Rudyard. Sometimes you'll hear people say Rudyard. And I don't know, but a lot of the time in America, you're going to see people write Richard Kipling. How you get Richard from Rudyard, I don't know. But Rudyard Kipling wrote a poem. I mean, he did other things, but he wrote a poem. And this poem becomes a big deal during this time period. It is called The White Man's Burden. And it's as bad as it sounds. Basically, it gives Europe the justification that they feel they need to take over everybody who isn't Europe. Basically, it's racist. I'll explain though. Rudyard Kipling, he writes White Man's Burden. Okay, the next guy, David Livingstone. It looks like Livingstone, but people call him David Livingstone. David Livingstone is a British guy, but he's not from England. I think he's Scottish, but David Livingstone is British, and he goes to Africa, okay, whenever England takes over parts of Africa, and he absolutely falls in love. He just loves Africa. And so anyway, he takes over, and he doesn't take over. That's not true. He explores Africa, and he's a missionary, and he really does have this heart for helping, not just, we're going to help, but really we're just going to take over. He really wants to help. The next word, manifest destiny. Manifest destiny was that idea especially associated in America, the United States, which basically said we have the right to go all the way from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean, from sea to shining sea. Manifest destiny. It's what pushed our whole westward expansion movement. Third column. Man, we're almost halfway done. Awesome. Boxer Rebellion. The Boxer Rebellion is a rebellion that occurs in China. Basically, the point of this rebellion is to kick Europeans out. This is like after the Opium Wars. We'll talk about it. Well, I'll talk about it in the videos later this week. But the Boxers want to kick the Europeans out. They're like, get out. It is unsuccessful, but sorry. Okay. The next one, the Berlin Conference. The Berlin Conference, it's weird, in a new place. I feel like my setup's all strange. Let me move my table. Okay, so the Berlin Conference is a meeting of a whole bunch of European countries after, not after. A lot of countries are going to Africa, and they're about to fight, war fight to take over parts of Africa. And so the Berlin Conference is this way to stop a European war and divide Africa amongst themselves. So the Berlin Conference, it's where Africa is partitioned, divided between a bunch of European countries. Okay, the next word, social Darwinism. Social Darwinism, it comes from that idea that I talked about last week with Charles Darwin. And Charles Darwin didn't come up with this, but he did come up with survival of the fittest, which basically says that the animals that can survive the best, not just physical strength, but we're talking emotional and mental strength. We're also talking adaptability. The animals who can change with the environment and deal with things are going to be better suited and survive. Well, social Darwinism is whenever that idea gets applied to countries, okay? And countries have this idea that whichever countries have been able to survive and adapt the best throughout this whole industrial revolution thing, those are the countries that are going to survive. And if you haven't been able to adapt, then you're going to get taken over. So it's kind of the rough way. My dad's watching me. So it's kind of the rough way of saying we get to take you over. Okay. Okay, bye. Okay, the next one, spheres of influence. A sphere of influence is an area of land that you don't actually own. You don't actually control it. It's not yours. But you have influence there. America is going to have influence over Latin America, although they don't physically own South America. Let me think. England is going to have, China, let me say it this way, is going to be a sphere of influence, okay, for England, because England doesn't own all of China, but they definitely control, they definitely have influence there. So a sphere of influence is somewhere where you don't actually own it, but you influence it very heavily. All right, the next one, white man's burden. Uh-oh. Sorry, I touched my computer screen. White man's burden. This is that idea that came from that poem that Rudyard Kipling wrote. And basically, the white man's burden is this: we need to help all of those poor, uncivilized people everywhere else in the world. We need to help them by giving our culture to them, by spreading our technology to them, by helping them modernize, and taking them over at the same time. So it's another reason, it's another justification for imperialism, for taking over an area, but it's kind of the nicer sounding justification than social Darwinism. Social Darwinism just says if they didn't keep up, then they deserve to get taken over. White man's burden says, well, if they couldn't keep up because they're kind of childlike and we need to take care of them, then we should take them over. But again, at its heart, it's going to turn into a racist thing. You can probably tell just by the name. Okay, the next one, the Spanish-American War. The Spanish-American War is a war between Spain and America, where really it's all fought because of this ship gets blown up. But as a result, oddly enough, we win. Okay. And as a result, we get several of Spain's islands in the Caribbean and some in the Pacific Ocean. The next word, economic imperialism, is another situation kind of like sphere of influence where you don't actually own that place physically, but you do control it economically. You hold the purse strings. You control what they produce, okay? You don't actually own them. They're still governing themselves, but you do control them economically, business, money. The next word you know, but you don't know probably. The Great Famine of 1845 is what a lot of you refer to as the potato famine in Ireland. It's not just potatoes and it's not just Ireland. But the Great Famine of 1845 is obviously this great famine, this massive famine in Europe that causes tons of people to leave Europe. And where are they going to go? To the Americas. This is when immigration in America starts like just crazy. Oops, sorry. And this is when I'm about to sneeze. Guys, I'm not sick. I'm fine. Sorry. Anyway, this is when if you've heard of Ellis Island, all of these people going through New York City, that's why. All right, the next word, the Sepoy. The Sepoy are Indians. They're not British, they're Indian men. But England owns India, okay? So the Sepoy are Indian men who have been allowed to actually be part of the British military. They're so good at fighting and what they do and stuff that they're like, I don't know, it's like the prestigious group that's allowed to be part of the British military. The next word, it is Boer. I hear people say Boer all the time. No, Boer. The Boer War is a war between England and the Dutch settlers that settled South Africa. Actually starting way back, like in the 1600s. We're in the 1800s now. So you have all of these Dutch settlers who have been living in South Africa. England takes over South Africa and they're like, hey, Dutch people, get out. The Dutch are like, no. So that's where the Boer War starts. Guess who wins? I bet you already know. Okay, underneath that is the Aborigine. The Aborigines are the native people to Australia. They're the natives to Australia. They're a really fun, neat people. I wish I could talk about them for a week. The natives to Australia. Underneath that, you have the Sino-French War. This is a war between France and China. And they're fighting for control over Indochina, that very first word that you had. Okay. They're fighting for control of the raw materials and stuff in Indochina, in Vietnam today, Cambodia. Okay. And then my happy little head, hi, is covering it up. But like if you look this way next to the word Sepoy over here on your paper, here, let me drop me for a second. Boom. Look, this word's hiding. The word is Maori. Maori. I hear people say Maori all the time. Maori. The Maori are the natives to New Zealand. And they're a little more warlike than the Aborigine. They're fun people too. But they're the natives to New Zealand. Okay, once you have this done, it's filled out. Like you've come in and you've typed. I don't know if I can. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I can. But once I've come in, oh, looky there, and I've typed, what is it? Imperialism. Yeah. Um, Once I'm done, be sure your name's on it. Yeah. Take a picture of this bad boy. Send me a picture either through Remind text, or through email, or send it through Canvas. If you're in Canvas and you're doing it and it's letting you, like, you can just put in the answers, hit submit, and you're done. Yeah. Be sure that you send that to me. Okie dokie. This is your like first, I don't know, pointed, graded, responded to activity for distance learning. Do you feel accomplished? Good. Okay. Bye, guys. See you in the next video. If I can hit end.